11 men has been found not guilty of manslaughter by gross negligence. Andrew Hill, who's 54, had been performing a loop when his vintage Hawker Hunter jet crashed onto the A27 in West Sussex 4 years ago and then exploded into a fireball. Incredibly, the former RAF pilot was thrown clear of the wreckage and survived. It was the first time a pilot had been charged with manslaughter following deaths at an air show. Our correspondent Tom Simons is at the Old Bailey for us tonight. Tom.
Yes, Sophie, this was the worst airshow disaster since the 1950s and an extremely technical trial. The judge, the jury, the police had to become experts in flying. And on every day, the families of those who died were here watching the evidence. When the verdicts came, the judge said he could see they were upset, but he praised their dignity. The last seconds of Andrew Hill's flight. What followed was described by one witness as like a war zone. The 11 men who died were all on the busy A27. Some to watch the flying, some just passing by, a veteran chauffeur, workmates, friends heading home. Daniele Polito died not knowing that he would become a father for a second time.
He has 2 little boys that he will never see grow up, and they will never have that daddy. And it's just so cruel. There's something that could have been avoided, which seems quite obvious, that it could have been avoided. It's just caused so much destruction to so many people.
Jacob Schilt and his friend Matthew Grimstone had been driving to their football club, Worthing United, when the plane hit their car.
From the beginning, you thought, this is absurd. You know, my son's being killed by a jet fighter at a display is just absurd.
Andrew Hill, ex-RAF, a British Airways captain, has always accepted his flying that day was poor. Outside court, he read the names of those who died.
I'm truly sorry for the part I played in their deaths, and it is they that I will remember for the rest of my life.
His cockpit ended up in a field. He was badly injured and, crucially, he had no memory of the flight. No memory of being hundreds of feet too low during the fatal loop. He said he must have been physically affected by something. This is the home of the British Aerobatic Academy. In the back seat, instructor Adrian Willis teaches pilots from all over the world. One thing they learn, how to cope with G-force, the extra force on the body in tight turns. He asks me to recite a nursery rhyme while pushing us through 6G. That's 6 times the Earth's gravitational pull.
Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Humpty Dumpty. All the king's horses, all the king's men couldn't put a whole team together again.
Now, fighter pilots train for this. But Andrew Hill is no longer an RAF pilot, and the verdict was worrying for one victim's family.
Trial, and we feel that the success of Mr. Hill's defence of cognitive impairment is a worrying precedent and could have far-reaching consequences.
The case already has for those flying former military jets in air shows. They're operated by companies and charities, and Shoreham has raised big questions about safety. This air display team currently can't fly aerobatics in air shows over land. And after years of concentrating on protecting the safety of crowds at an air show, now regulators are looking at the risks to people in surrounding areas.
At the end of the day, we have to be hugely sympathetic to what's happened, and due process needs to take place, and we expect that regulations will change, and it's our duty as trustees, custodians of these aircraft to work within those regulations that are put before us and continue as best we can to display these heritage assets to the public.
Next come the inquests into the 11 deaths. The victims' families say they intend to play a full part. Tom Simons, BBC News.
The lawyer acting on behalf of the family of Shamima Begum, the teenager who ran away from London to join the Islamic State group, has said that he has strong but as yet unconfirmed reports that her newborn son has died. The BBC has been told by a medical source inside the camp that the reports are true, but tonight authorities in the camp have described the reports as fake. Well, our Home Affairs correspondent Daniel Sanford is with me now. It's a confusing picture, but if true, this is the third child that she has lost.
Yes, Sophie, that's right. Her other two children both died before Christmas while she was in Bahus. She said sleeping outside, and her children had essentially died from unknown illnesses as a result of the conditions they were sleeping in. Mohammed Tasneem Akunji, the lawyer for Shamima Begum's family, announced this possible news this afternoon, saying he had strong but unconfirmed reports of the death of Shamima Begum's son Jarrah. That was very quickly denied by the SDF spokesman, the SDF being the mostly Kurdish forces who are fighting Islamic State in the area and that run these camps. But we've now spoken to a number of medical sources working inside the Roj camp, which is the camp where Shamima Begum is now being held, one of whom says that she was actually involved in taking Shamima Begum and her baby to hospital yesterday. The baby had had breathing difficulties, that the baby had died in hospital at lunchtime yesterday, and that then had been taken back with Shamima Begum to Roj camp, where Shamima Begum had buried her child. So although that is only a sort of second-hand source, it's quite a strong medical source within the camp. And clearly, Shamima Begum's family had been asking for assistance from the government to try and bring this young boy back to the UK, saying that he was still a British citizen. And it now turns out that if these reports are correct, that's all too late.
Daniel Sanford, thank you.